Hearing about the crossover from other people, I imagine you can kind of prepare yourself a little bit for what this might be like, but actually show running a crossover hour has to be an entirely different experience. What was your first crossover experience like for you?
Well, for me, it was a lot of fun. For the writers of the individual episodes, I think it was a lot of work. And the writers of the the individual episodes was Victor Turan on Fire, Stephen Hootstein on Med, and Joe Halpin on PD. And the three of them were the ones that got together. They had a mini writers' room. They put their heads together and they hammered out this story. They pitched several different versions to Wolf Entertainment, and Wolf Entertainment chose the one that we did, obviously. And the showrunners absolutely had input into the individual episodes, and then especially when the scripts were done, there was communication between the writers and the showrunners about is this what Voight would sound like? Is this Voight's voice? And and if like PD felt we got that wrong, or Fire, or I did on the other shows with Med characters, we all collaborated to make sure that there was a consistency because we're not used to writing each other's characters.
Absolutely. Well, and Med has certainly a specific kind of responsibility because they're dealing with taking care of everyone in the aftermath of this tragedy. What can you tease about how Med will be hopefully saving the day and saving a bunch of lives in the midst of everything?
Well, the gas main explosion that destabilizes a huge building and then causes an underground avalanche, basically, that traps a subway car. There's a lot of people killed, and there are a lot of survivors that end up, or at least they survive the initial, situation, that go to Med. And that's where the Med Hour lives, is in trying to keep those people alive. There's a bit of a question if in the 3 hours if this explosion was an accident or on purpose, and uh, PD is very much looking into that, and Fire is trying to get the situation under control because there are people trapped under the surface and wants to get them up to the surface. A big emotional centerpiece of the Med Hour is, and I can say this because of the preview. I was told not to say certain things, and they gave it away in the preview, and then like, okay, I guess I can talk about it. But you know, uh, Trudy Platt's life is very much on the line.
Yeah. Well, and speaking to that, because as mentioned, it is in the preview, she is someone who's been such a kind of centerpiece for this franchise and obviously has such a big also role with Fire because she's married to one of those characters. What can you tease and what can you share about how those scenes may have been written or shot differently given her importance to this franchise?
I don't think that they were shot differently, but I think that storyline um, is the one of the main, not the only, but the main emotional centerpiece of the whole hour, because action is wonderful and suspense is wonderful and great storytelling devices, but I think it's the emotion that people remember. And I think that that's that storyline between Mouch and Trudy are amazing. Christian Stoll and Amy Morton are amazing. Um, I am personally obsessed with Mouch. I think he's amazing. So amazing that I asked Andrea Newman if I could use him in episode 15 of Med. So, and she said yes, thankfully. And so he is in, he will be in episode 15 of Med after the crossover.
I love that. One of the things that has been teased in the recently released photos is that Archer is in full firefighter gear. What can you tease about what different sides we'll be seeing of some of the characters we know and love in the other shows?
All I can say about that is that I'm not giving anything away to say that Dr. Archer's a doctor, and there may be people that need help in places that aren't easy to get to.
That is fair. One of the fun things about these crossovers is the unusual or unexpected pairings. What unexpected pairings delighted you the most? Can you tease?
I loved watching Dr. Frost interacting with Violet and Novak, from Fire. And it's not a spoiler to say in the first hour that the reason Frost is with them is because he's like shadowing, dropping in to spend a day with with 51, and then this tragedy happens, and he ends up, having to work with them. And he's a doctor; he's not used to being out, on the streets, saving lives after accidents and stuff like that. And there's a very steep learning curve for him, and there's some tension between him and Novak and Violet.
Well, one of the things that's interesting about the One Chicago franchise is that there are inter-show romances. Did any kind of chemistry in what you've done for this crossover kind of spark anything romance-wise that might be coming up down the line?
I would say there's all kinds of tensions going on between characters.
Okay. Uh,
that that's possible. Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and certainly with something like this, as you mentioned, there's so many different kinds of injuries we could see in the aftermath of this because there's the collapse, but there's also a gas leak has its own kind of consequences. What can you do to the medical cases outside of Trudy's we'll be seeing in the crossover?
Well, what's the best way to say this is like with the explosions, there's all kinds of unexpected, uh, you know, uh, tragedies that befall different people. Some people are killed instantly. Some people have appendages that are stuck, and some people are mortally wounded and might not make it. Um, all those things are on the table in this episode because of the sheer scale of the explosion. And then again, you see this in the preview is that Stella Kidd and Adam Ruzek are trapped underneath on a subway car with a whole bunch of passengers that were just going about their day and then got stuck. And there's a lot of suspense and emotion down there as well.
Yeah. Obviously the episodes before this kind of had to shift around because of real life situations, so it changed the air schedule. But this is a situation where the med characters are coming into this right after we just saw Ripley lose Sully, and obviously Goodwin has been through a lot. How much of their personal kind of trauma and drama is coming into this hour, or is it entirely kind of standalone from what we've seen in the past couple weeks of med episodes?
It's both. I think, like big picture, this is looked at as a one Chicago movie, and that the story, is isolated within those 3 hours. But it also takes place chronologically, exactly where it falls. So you will see little touchstones of things that are going on the individual shows. On the med part, I can tell you that, that when Ripley and Hannah arrive at the hospital, they're dressed in black because they just came from Sully's funeral. I can tell you that, that although Goodwin is recovering, that when she hears what happens, that she shows up at the hospital ready to help. Recovery is not done yet, so she's coming in early.